Hi, I'm Sheila Scarborough. I'm a writer. I specialize in travel and drag racing, but today we're going to talk about the travel side of things and shopping. I'm going to admit it, I like to shop. I'm one of those people who goes to an art museum, and yes, I do go find the museum store. Sorry about that for the purists out there, but I do like to bring home a little doodad from the places that I've been. I've discovered over the years that I'm beginning to sort of turn it into an art form, particularly with regard to stuff that doesn't cost a fortune. I got into this when I originally, a few years ago, wrote up a little blue list online for the Lonely Planet travel guide, talking about inexpensive travel souvenirs, things that I'd gotten over the years that I'd enjoyed and wanted to share with other people who were trying to move beyond kind of the obvious travel souvenir. What I think is that a good travel souvenir, number one, I'd like it to be inexpensive if possible. Number two, I want it to evoke a sense of where I've been. I want to be able to look at it and smile and think about the place where I got it. I'd like it to be evocative of the neighborhood or the city or the country that I visited. And thirdly, a complete bonus, if the item can actually be useful, something that I use in my daily life so that I can enjoy it every day, that's the top of the heap for me in terms of a travel souvenir. Let me show you some suggestions for things that I like as travel souvenirs. I'm going to lead off with what my first travel souvenir that got me going in this hobby of hunting down the cheapos, and that is a floaty pen. And for you purists, again, I'm sorry, but this has become so much fun to look for worldwide, and it doesn't cost very much. A floaty pen is just one of those little plastic pens that has a little device in it that goes back and forth in front of some sort of a scene. I never used to buy these, I assure you, but one day in Jerusalem, yes, Jerusalem, I found a floaty pen for the Last Supper. And appallingly, there is a little device that floats back and forth in front of the Last Supper folks. The goblet of wine and the bread floating back and forth convinced me that I had to have this souvenir from Jerusalem. And that was the beginning of the floaty pen collection. I found them all over the world. It's unbelievable the places you can find these things, and again, they don't cost very much and they bring a smile to your face whenever you pull one out to use it. I got this one at Studio Ghibli in Mitaka, which is a suburb in Tokyo. That is a museum facility for Hayao Miyazaki, who does a lot of anime films like Spirited Away, and it's got My Neighbor Totoro and some of his famous anime guys going back and forth in front of a little scene there for Studio Ghibli, and I always enjoy that. Something useful. Bottle openers. I don't open that many bottles these days, but when I do, it's fun to have an opener that reminds me of some place that I've been. One guess where I purchased this particular bottle opener. Yeah, okay, I went there. I have two kids, but I thought of all the possible bottle openers, this one was probably the most interesting. Again, Jerusalem came through for me in terms of bottle openers. Had to have it, a Shalom bottle opener, so I get good wishes whenever I open up anything that's a glass bottle. That's kind of cool. Again, something useful, dish towels for your kitchen. The Transport Museum in London's Covent Garden has all kinds of neat doodads with regard to the tube, the subway system in London, and this is a kitchen dish towel that is a map of the tube system, which always brings, again, a smile to my face when I'm drying dishes. Every place has little dish towels. This is from a small town up in Maine, Castine, that's very proud of its heritage and has a number of historic buildings in town. And so I could even find a Castine, Maine dish towel with key buildings that I can remember some summer Maine vacations from there. A lot of people get posters. Yes, they're not very useful. They do collect dust, but you can come up with some interesting stuff with regard to posters. Here's an example. I got this in Japan at the local post office where I was staying for a few months. Went into the post office and saw an entire rack of these flyers for food products. There's the prices in yen on the back for various types of food that you can order. These were just free advertising flyers. So I picked up the ones that interested me the most and the ones that were food related, I grouped together in kind of a montage thing in a double glass Pier 1 frame, very inexpensive. Put all the food items together, and that hangs in my kitchen as a nice remembrance of my time in Japan. I was even able to find one of them that had Fuji in the background, so I thought that was kind of neat, and I enjoyed picking those out. Didn't cost me anything other than the cost of the frame. Also, in terms of things to hang on your wall, maps are always cool. This is a map in Chinese of Tokyo. Of Hong Kong, Kowloon side, Hong Kong side, and the various spots there in Japanese. It's just a simple, inexpensive paper map, and I put it in an inexpensive poster frame that I picked up at a craft store. Didn't cost me very much, and I have a nice remembrance of a visit to Hong Kong. So yeah, you can find really cool posters. You can pay a lot for them, but you can also find interesting things to hang on the wall, and you can, if you look hard, frame them fairly inexpensively. Bookmarks are always useful for you readers out there. So I've picked up bookmarks in various places. These are lighthouses from across the United States. I got married in Duck, North Carolina. Many of you have probably seen the famous swirly black and white Hatteras Lighthouse. So I'm kind of interested in lighthouses. And I picked up one at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, near London, and every time I put it into a book, I smile, and it reminds me of visits to those places. Music is always good. I have a little bit of music going on in the background. Normally when I go to a place, I just walk into a local music store, record store, and ask the proprietor what's good. And I've gotten all kinds of interesting things. There's a Balinese CD going on right now that reminds me of time in Bali. I've picked up a Chinese zheng, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Z-H-E-N-G, after I listened to part of a concert in Hong Kong, and I got a CD of that. We've got Mariachi Vargas, one of the better mariachi groups of many out there, that always reminds me of Mexico. Sometimes the music that's available is not all that high-tech. A few years back, it was cassette tapes, so that's what I have a ton of. I've got to do something with them. I don't know who this guy is, but I asked the proprietor of a record store in the UAE in the United Arab Emirates who he recommended, and he gave me this cheery guy who sings some upbeat Arab pop music. I enjoy it. A little bit of music from the Andes from a trip to Guatemala, and Arrow, who is a Caribbean singer. I enjoy that. Sometimes you can even score vinyl, which is even more fun. You can find maybe an old album. This is a Cajun music group, Beausoleil, and this is an album frame. You can get them at Pier 1, I think also. You can get them at craft stores, Restoration Hardware, and I just, the album, the record is in there. I can take it out and play it anytime I want, but I have a neat thing to hang on the wall and remember time in Cajun country in Louisiana. Finally, one of my favorite items came in a Chinese department store in the medical supplies section. Walking around, just curious as to what was out there. Walked into, I don't know, it was like a 7th-floor department store, and this was on the 3rd or 4th floor. Medical supplies, canes, walkers, portable potties, knee braces. Was just looking around, wondering what they had, and I came across this thing that said, ear model showing acupuncture points. And I thought, well, what is this? And I pulled it out, and it's a plastic rubber rendering of acupuncture points on an ear in Chinese with all the little holes where the needles are supposed to go. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I have to have it. Someday maybe I'll mount it on a wall, I don't know. But all I do know is that it's unusual. It reminds me of Hong Kong where I got it. It's certainly evocative of China with Asian medicine and acupuncture. And most importantly, it makes me smile every time I look at it. This is the first in a 2-part series, so look for the second part, and we'll talk about how to get something beyond the ubiquitous t-shirt. I have a lot of t-shirts, but I look for interesting ones, and I'll give you some other tips on inexpensive travel souvenirs. I'm Sheila Scarborough. Thanks for joining me.